Excellent. Looks like we are streaming live on YouTube and recording. That's great news. We had some problems with Zoom and the live stream, so we are excited that it's working today and ready to go. And for those of you that are just joining us, welcome. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Thank you for spending your Cinco de Mayo with us. We are going to give everybody just a couple of moments to get signed on. There's a flurry of activity right now. So we will start in just a few moments. Thanks again for being here at the AB 617 Stockton Community Steering Committee. Dinner looks good, Mary Elizabeth. I don't see Mary Elizabeth's dinner, but I would love to know what it is.
She shared a colorful plate of something delicious.
Oh, nice. Hi, Sylvia.
Hello.
Hey, Noemi.
I'm on YouTube right now. What live stream coming from? Are they air quality or air pollution, or what is it? It's like I share it to Facebook.
Put the / and then type healthy air living.
Healthy air living. Okay.
Hi, Ned.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I won't say anything else.
We want you to talk. Hey, Gil.
Hi there.
Hi, Matt. And Stacy's joining, and Florence. Looks like we're getting a good crew. Bianca. We're just going to give everybody a few seconds to log in. Hi, Kyle. Just a few seconds to log in, and then we will get started. Thank you so much for your patience and for being with us today. I'm surprised that nobody is sporting a Cinco de Mayo Zoom background or showing us any margaritas or Mexican food. We can't condone margaritas during our community steering committee meeting, but we do have to honor the holiday.
That's
the unofficial holiday.
Meeting and during after the meeting that we're having our celebration.
Yes.
That is a good. It'll still be light outside, probably cooling down a little bit. It'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we do have a pretty good crew, and I know we want to get you out of here on time so that you can celebrate or do whatever it is that you need to do at the end of your day. So I think if it's okay with everyone on the line, we're going to go ahead and get started. And we will begin by screen sharing and showing you, just as a quick reminder, just some renaming criteria, just so that we can keep track of CSC residents, CARB Air District, and public staff or public that are on the line today. We definitely love to track all of these affiliations for a number of reasons. Stipends is one, but then also we're going to do something we haven't done in a little while, which is breakout groups today. So we definitely want to make sure that your screen name reflects your affiliation and your role on the CSC. So with this slide showing, I will say good evening, hello. My name is Erica Manuel. I am the CEO of a nonprofit organization called ILG, and I'm so happy to be here with you tonight to work with the facilitation team for this meeting. My team members are Hannah and Kim, and they are behind the scenes. They are on your screen, and they should be waving right now. As a reminder, we're here to help you with any problems you might have throughout the meeting, and we were committed to making sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, everyone has an opportunity to access this meeting, that it's inclusive, that it's responsive, and that we are really kind of living the spirit of AB 617. I think we've been talking to Douglas for a few minutes now and that you're good with the interpretation, but I just want to triple check and make sure that everything is good with Douglas and Marcus today. So everything good?
Yeah, fine.
Perfect. Excellent. And as you know, we do make sure that there is interpretation available. We have ASL interpretation today, and we have the option for Spanish interpretation if that is ever needed, if you want to communicate that to the Air District. So moving to the next slide, we have had numerous Zoom meetings, so we don't need to go into all of these details. We're seeing a lot of familiar faces. Just a couple reminders. Make sure your screen name is accurate, and remember that we are happy to rename you if you need us to. If you're in the stipend program, we hope you will, if you're a resident, we hope you will stay in this meeting for 75% of it so you can get credit for the meeting. We pay out stipends. ILG actually does that at the end of every month. And then as a formality, this meeting is being recorded and there will be a public comment at the end. These meetings are always open to the public, and we're grateful to the public members that join us via Facebook or YouTube or even on our Zoom. If you are on Zoom and you're a member of public, we are going to ask you to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting at the end. But at any time during the meeting, you can email ab617@valleyair.org to address, and we'll have that reflected during the public comment period. So anytime on the record, ab617@valleyair.org. And you can also put comments in on social media that we check before the end of every meeting. So really quickly, just from a housekeeping standpoint, I am going to ask my colleagues, Kim or Hannah, if anybody needs renaming that you can see so we can make sure that any phone numbers or tablets get accurately named for our attendance process.
Right now, everyone is named.
Awesome. We are really good at this now. So thank you guys for really catching onto the Zoom and getting the renaming done. We will stop the meeting if we see anybody, or maybe flag somebody and chat them privately if we do see someone as they join. So we didn't get any volunteers to be a community co-host for the meeting tonight, so there isn't a co-host, but as a reminder, we would love to have volunteers for future meetings to make sure that CSC members play an active role in every meeting if possible. So at this time, we'll stop sharing and we'll just ask the Air District host if they've got any words that they want to say about this meeting before we talk about the agenda.
Nope. Just, good evening, everybody. Excited. I think we have a lot of positive work, a lot of positive stuff to work on, and just excited to really dive into the implementation phase and working with all of you on prioritizing what things we're going to work on, and just how about we're going to work on this all together and really lay the groundwork, the framework for it moving on these next 5 years. So great to see all of you. I love the Simpsons background that I'm seeing, and the other festive ones as well. I like Matt's background of the waterways of Stockton. It's great. So adds personality to everything that we're doing. So thanks, everyone. And
I love the Simpsons background, Catherine. I didn't see that, but it's great. Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. We are going to show that agenda slide one more time. So we're going to share that so you can all see what we're going to do tonight. And as soon as that pops up, I'll give you a download. We have approximate timeframes here. The exact discussion can flow. As you know, we try and make sure that there's flexibility within every meeting. The goal is to start on time and end on time. So we're going to plan to be done with our meeting at 7 today. And now that we're done with the SERP development and approval, or at least for this committee, we're going to spend a little time during each meeting getting to know each other. So you'll see in that first item, we're going to have an icebreaker today, and we're actually going to work on some smaller groups and really get to know each other a little bit better. And one of the things that we heard, even in the last meeting and in sprinkles of previous meetings, because of COVID, we really have lost that opportunity to connect in person and to build relationships. So we wanted to start prioritizing that in this stage of the implementation to make sure that you know your fellow CSC members, you know what they stand for, what their work is, and how it connects to the work that you're all doing and working on together. So the first thing we're going to do is a short breakout session and icebreaker, and then we're going to talk about where you are in that SERP implementation process. As Ryan mentioned, you just spent a little over a year working on SERP development. So now what for you guys, right? What does it mean for the next 5 years? How does it work? What are the obligations? What are the opportunities? So Jess with the Air District is going to walk you through the current status and the next steps and how you're going to maybe prioritize the SERP that you've just developed. And then we're going to review and discuss the current CSC charter. This is a key milestone where you are right now in the SERP process. So it's a good time to revisit the charter, make sure it's clear to everyone, still meets your needs in this virtual environment. And then we're going to cover some standing updates. And tonight, those are going to include community air monitoring and an update from CARB. And then the last thing we're going to do is wrap up in public comment. We always leave a little bit of time for that. We do have some public members on the line today, and we have, as I mentioned, social media streaming. So we want to make sure that we honor that transparency and allow the public to speak up as well. So the ILG team is a neutral facilitator. We're going to be facilitating tonight's conversation, and we have 3 goals. As you know, your charter as it currently stands says you want to have a wide variety of community voices heard and incorporated onto the record. So we're going to make sure that that happens. And even opinions that are maybe minority opinions are shared and reflected in the meeting minutes. So we're going to try and make sure you speak up and make sure that you get your opinion out. We also want to help ensure that the meeting is fully covered and that the agenda is extended, and make sure that we start and end on time, and that we honor the schedules of the presenters. So again, we're good on time there. And then the last thing we like to ensure is that the conversation and tone remains productive and respectful. Next slide. All right. So what is not showing at the moment is some tips for sharing this virtual space. We did mention this, and it's a refresher for all of you all. Just a couple considerations and reminders. Please, if you can, keep your camera on if you can. If you can't, do not feel guilty. We will not be mad at you, but it does help us get a sense of how the committee feels, how everybody's thinking about something. If we were in person, it wouldn't be an issue, but on Zoom, it's hard to gauge people's actual reactions and feelings when we don't see your faces. So please keep your cameras on if you can. Also, speak up if you can. Camera on or off, speak up. These meetings are your opportunity to learn, grow, and share, and we love the opportunity to hear from you. And it's so much easier when other people understand kind of where CSC members are coming from, so that they can either agree with you or maybe come up with change their perspective based on some of the things that you have shared with them. And then the last thing we talked about, I think in previous meetings, is a reminder and a request we've gotten to keep your focus, your chat dialogue focused on the current topic. So we do have people on tablets and we do have people in translation, and it's hard for them to follow both the chat dialogue if it's running really quickly and also the verbal. So a couple quick reminders on those, and then we are good. So before we dive into the icebreaker, which is showing right now, and I have that pull off this screen, can I ask if there are any questions about the agenda or anything we've talked about so far? Seeing no hands, you got a preview of what we're going to do next. So but don't show the slide just yet. I'll walk through it and then we'll put it back up. So as mentioned, we're going to do an icebreaker. We haven't done one of those in a while. It's been at least a few months, and we talked about why it's important is this committee. I mean, Ryan just mentioned, you guys are in this for the long haul. It's a 5-year implementation schedule. And so it's important that you identify kind of your shared values, your things in common, and the ways that you guys can continue to work together and leverage each other as partners and friends. So you're all here because you want to improve air quality and you want to improve health outcomes and you want to make a difference, but you may not know each other as well. So we wanted to build that into today's meeting. As you might have seen on the screen, it's not going to go up yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to break you up into groups of 3 or 4. And this is going to be CSC members only, since, you guys are the ones that are going to be working together. We're going to take all the CSC members, we're going to break you up into a group, and we're going to ask you to answer one of 2 questions, which you might have seen on the screen. Number 1 option, in honor of Cinco de Mayo, we're going to ask you about your favorite restaurant in the Stockton area. And this is kind of in honor of Cinco de Mayo and thinking about food like I am. Think about what your favorite restaurant is. And maybe you can share that with your breakout group. The other question you could choose to answer, if you don't have a favorite or you don't want to share that, you can choose to answer a question about COVID. And one question that we have is has there been a silver lining during the shelter-in-place order? Did you learn a new skill? Did you spend more time with family? We'd love to know the answer to one of those questions. So you have 2 possible questions you can answer, and we're going to ask one CSC member to volunteer to report out for each group at the end of the breakouts. We're going to come back into a big group, and we're going to hear from one person on behalf of their little mini group. So it's showing on the screen how we will do this. So there's going to be about 10 minutes for this. We're going to ask you to answer what's your favorite Stockton area restaurant to visit and eat at, and or what is one silver lining from the shelter-in-place order. Those are the 2 options, and then we do need one volunteer from each group to be called on to report out. We'll share the screen and see if there are any questions from the committee before we break out. If you have a question, feel free to raise a blue hand. If you don't have a question, we will check in with Kim and Hannah and see if they're ready to assign.
Absolutely, Erica. We are ready to assign. So folks, you're going to be moved to the rooms automatically. No need to click on anything, but there is an option to come back to the main room if for some reason you don't like your group, but I hope it's not the case. So I'm going to open all rooms and I will send you questions, the reminders in the room, the questions that Erica mentioned. And then in 10 minutes, we're going to bring you back and you're going to see a 60-second countdown before we bring you back. When you see that countdown, figure out who is going to be a volunteer to report out. Okay, with that, I'm sending all CSC members into the breakout rooms. Here we go.
If you are not assigned a breakout room and you're like from Carver, the Air District, we're just staying in the main room. It looks like, oh, it's Regina's the
I was
only
just gonna
one.
say, yeah, Regina just joined, so
Regina just joined.
I'm gonna assign her to one of the rooms with 3 people.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Regina. I hope you heard us. If you just joined, we want to make sure we don't send you without talking to you. So if you can hear us, unmute and we'll explain how to get you where you're going.
I think she's gone.
I think she went. Yeah.
But she's already gone.
I was gonna say I don't see her on the list. I'm like, where's the Regina? Regina.
Anna, did you skip room number 7 because it's like not a lucky number?
Yes, something happened, but there's no room number 7. I deleted it. I deleted room number 7 and Zoom doesn't automatically
Renumber.
update the renumber.
Oh, I thought it was just like a superstitious thing.
Well, it can be.
Does Arlene need to go, or do we have everyone in a?
Yes,
Arlene.
Arlene, I will throw her in room 8. There we go.
Is there anyone straggling?
It's like our Tuesday afternoon call.
I was gonna say, what's your favorite restaurant? I don't have one in the Stockton area, but we can,
Yeah, Erica, you could probably tell that wasn't your team, that was me. And you're like, why isn't this syncing up?
No worries. All good. You're gonna go with the flow. Oh, do we have a slide for the breakout?
Oh, yes, we do.
Since
Heather
we're kind of down for a little while on YouTube and Facebook.
Yep, we do.
Heather was kindly sharing the screen so I could
got you.
concentrate on making the rooms.
Yep, there it is. That one.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much.
And I realized now the one you wanted was right there.
That one. But you know what?
I figured it out.
It's all right. Heather, we appreciate you. It's all good.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So we put them in the meeting, let's see, in the breakout group
5:15.
at 5:15 to 5:25.
And we have 7 groups, Erica.
That's actually perfect. And do you know, were they assigned by group numbers? We can say group 1 or group 2.
No.
That's okay. We'll just ask them to go in order. All good.
Yes, I can call out the groups based on who was in the group.
Perfect. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Jean, if you can hear us, we're doing breakout rooms, so I'm going to assign you to a room real fast.
I don't see Jean.
You just hopped on.
Oh,
Can
there
you
we
hear
go. There.
Hello. Yep.
Hi, Jean.
Good evening.
Sorry, we're doing breakout rooms, just some icebreakers. So I'm going to throw you in room number 2, if that's okay.
Thank you. That will be fine.
Okay, great.
And then Hannah, would you mind if, or whoever's the host, if you can put the questions in just to make sure they don't
Already
forget
did.
it since we dropped in a couple of new bodies. Awesome. Thank you. Oh, it's getting cut off actually.
What's getting cut off?
I
The
think that's
second
just
part
our
of
view.
the. Oh,
I think
okay.
the view in the breakout room is better.
Mhm. Is Zong? It looks like Zong's like I think it's because yesterday was the Star Wars day. She looks like one of the Star Wars robots right now. If you see her like her chair maybe under
Oh my
Zong's photo,
gosh,
it's
she's
hilarious to
totally
me.
like a droid. She's like a little
A droid, right? Do you
Like I
see
think
what?
it is just
Yes.
her chair, but like the
But that's
angle.
definitely.
Absolutely. I think it literally is because of Star Wars Day yesterday and everything was Star Wars. Now she's back and doesn't anymore.
Erica, I gave a 2 minutes heads up. And I'm gonna close the rooms in 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. 10 minutes goes by fast.
Yeah, and then it's gonna be 60-second countdown, so they will have another minute to come back.
Perfect. Ryan, was that you yawning?
Never.
We did hear
Never.
that.
We
I don't
never
yawn, I
admit,
don't
never
sleep,
admit to yawning.
never yawn, don't sleep.
No.
I just zoom.
Okay, it's 5:25. I'm gonna close all the rooms.
Thank you. Welcome back, Douglas.
I would be the spokesperson.
Hello, Douglas. Long time no see.
Yeah. Well, trying to spam my screen more. Okay.
Cultural.
Looks like you're all slowly but surely coming back. Thank you.
Erica, everyone is back. I think so.
Excellent. All right. Well, hopefully that was a little bit of time for you to get to know your fellow CSC members. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Hannah to identify which people were in which group, and then whoever was decided or volunteered to be the scribe or the report out person, we'd ask you to spend, 60 seconds telling us about the people on your small group. Hannah,
Great.
take it away.
First, we're gonna go with the room number 1, room with Albert, Sylvia, Douglas, and Florence. And then we're gonna go with the next room with Jeffrey, Jean, Bianca, Maria, and Nate. First room, anyone from the room 1? Albert, Sylvia, Douglas, or Florence?
Was it me? Well, I was number 1? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had pretty much comment with celebrating the Cinco de Mayo. They have the favorite restaurant. I believe some like, oh my God, it's on my mind. One's like Nana, the other one like me, I like Susie, the other one like, I'm not very good with puzzle pieces, but they all have, their, I guess, the tradition of the Cinco de Mayo that we eat during the day. And with Sylvia, can you remind me one more restaurant that you said?
I picked Red Lobster and Olive Garden.
Red Lobster, that's what it was. Yes, that was something I had that a couple of days ago. And then I could have caught it. But though she had that too, and then we talk about the silver lining. COVID. I think I did most of the talking, saying that I haven't got mine yet. Still waiting because I'm still, I'm afraid of people wearing masks. Because I can't understand them, and it trying to educate me. When I take the shot and what to expect and everything. So I'm kind of like a person that when they do their taxes, I do like the last minute, same thing, last minute, take my shot. So. And that's what's been happening. But but other people have silver lining about. I believe Florence had just learned that in Zoom, she used it a lot. She's learning a lot because she goes to churches and she not even missed it. So she able to understand Zoom and also what else? Was it Ryan or what's his name? The guy's name. He was also saying that he liked when everything was closed a little bit, where everything was more cleaner. There was not enough people watching. The quality of the air and the water was good and everything. And Sylvia, I think David said something almost at the end when we started counting 1, 2, 3, and all of a sudden I just lost contact. Can you repeat that what you said, Sylvia?
Yeah, mine was not commuting, saving money on gas.
Saving money on gas. Yeah. So that's what Sylvia said, and that's it. And that's pretty much what she said. All right.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so
much.
much.
And then Jonathan in the chat has some funny Olive Garden tips for you if you happen to like Olive Garden and wine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we need one volunteer from the group number 2, Jeffrey, Jean, Bianca, Maria, or Nate. Anyone from your group? And next we're gonna go to Maria, Matt, Mary, and Taylor's group.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about a spokesperson, but I'll go ahead and do it if nobody else wants to. So as far as restaurants, Fiesta Mexicana was one, Los Palmas, Irma's, and then a place inside Alpine Market, and Dave Wong's as well. But some of the benefits and the silver linings was people were able to brush up on their computer skills, their technical skills, and yes, the commuting was another huge benefit. I also noticed the air quality. Once people started the commutes, the air was just so much better. And I think that was about it.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. We are seeing the repeating themes already. Next group with Maria, Matt, Mary, and Taylor. One of you, please. And after that, we're going to go to the Jonathan's, Margot, Ned, Liba, and Stacy's groups.
So I'll go ahead and go. We had Nina's for the most authentic food. And then we had two taco trucks. The one on Pacific Avenue by the tire across from the school for adults. And the one just down the street on a Harding, right by the Family Dollar store. So those were the taco trucks and the Mexican restaurant. Everyone had something to say about spending more time with family and even connecting with distant family on a video kind of platform. And that is what we talked about.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, next we have Jonathan, Margus, and Stacy's group. And after that, we're going to go to the group with Ed, Kenda, Naomi, and Gloria.
Okay, so told you, Margot, we were supposed to talk about the silver linings, but we actually talked the whole time of food. So Siamese Thai food on Pacific Avenue. I'm going to try it since everyone swears that it's bomb. The other one we talked about is for Mexican food. Ned and I definitely believe Xochimilco's is bomb. I don't remember what Xochimilco's on. Is it California Street? I don't remember. That's been, I mean, it's a hole in the wall. Okay, sound game. It's been there for generations, and it's still a staple for Mexican staple for the Stockton community. He's also talked about Tio Pepe's, taco trucks. I think the one that's on Fresno Avenue, going not in Box Track community, but going on the other side. I don't know what that street is, but it's a cross street before you get onto I-5. That's on a corner area next to, I think, industrial warehouses. For some reason, their salsa is like extremely good. I highly recommend it if you go down on Fresno Avenue that way. And then Margot recommended Colorado Market when it comes to food, Mexican food. Let's see, what else do we talk about? I mean, we talked about sushi food, and I think that's it. I think that's all we included.
Indian food.
Oh yes, Margot, what is that? I forgot.
And tandoori nights.
Yeah, Kelly Drive. So if those right next to In Shape, if you ever want to go to that place, it is always good. They're doing very good during COVID, and they've got just bomb selection of food, and their garlic bread is extremely good. So, yep.
Right. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I think we're officially all getting a little bit hungrier with all these descriptions. Okay, next we have Ed, Kenda, Naomi, or Gloria's group. And after that, we're gonna go to Davy, Leonard, Regina, and Briana's group.
We didn't talk about a leader, so I would encourage Kenda, Gloria, and Naomi to jump in, but we got to know each other, and that was pretty exciting. To be honest with you, we completely forgot the questions, didn't address them at all, but we talked about what each other does. I had no idea Kenda was so involved in the urban greening process, and it was a real blessing to talk to Gloria. She's a college student, and obviously the kind of people that we need moving forward to carry the ball, to make our communities cleaner. But more than that, she's also learning GIS, which I only wished I knew better than I do today. Naomi's a principal, and you can only look in her eyes to know how she feels about her children, her school, and her community. So we had a great time talking with each other.
I love that. And Erica is sending the heart sign. And you're giving us a great idea of what the question for the breakout groups should be in the next time when we meet. We'll just learn more about each other in this way. Okay, we are going to Briana's, Debbie, Regina's group. Anyone from that group? And you know who is left. I'm not going to say that because there's 4 more people left. Debbie or Regina or Leonard or Briana? Anyone from your group?
We didn't assign a leader, but I'll go ahead and take it. So we talked about, of course, our favorite restaurants. Mine is Don Luis off of North Highway 99. Leonard said he really likes the biscuits at Red Lobster. Debbie said her favorite restaurant was El Serape, which is a Mexican restaurant off of Weber, I believe. And then Regina said she liked the taco truck in the 76 parking lot off of March Lane. And I believe it's El Maita. I think that's what it's called. And then the silver lining for most of us was just being able to spend quality time with our family and getting our life organized.
I love it. Getting our life organized. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Okay, and last but not least, Arlene, Catherine, Irene, or Melissa?
I was going to present for the group. So for restaurants, Melissa's favorite is Nash and Tender. It's newer and does like Nashville style chicken, like at the movie theaters. For mine, like for Filipino food, Island Gourmet, which is like a counter style and grocery store next door on Hammer, and then Lucky Pho for Vietnamese, and then Nena's. And then Catherine mentioned Las Palmas. I think that was also mentioned before. And then Arlene's is also Nena's, but the B Street one, because there's the one on B Street and then the one at the waterfront. And for the silver lining, a lot of what we mentioned is just how the work environment got a lot easier, not having to commute between different meetings, having time to like work in self-care by walking around to get to know the neighborhood better, or cooking healthy food, and also like being able to spend time with, Melissa mentioned like newborn, so that's awesome. And yeah, that's about it for our update.
Great, thank you so much. Well, we definitely have the idea for the next breakout. If this worked out well, give us a thumbs up. Let us know your reactions. And we really enjoyed learning about silver lining, family times, lack of commute, new skills, self-care, getting organized, and then introspect. I wish we had a list of restaurants going. We should have assigned a volunteer to keep a list for the group.
Well, the good news is the chat is public. You know, we'll keep track of it. So the notes are in the chat. So we will definitely try to keep track of that. I think somebody even asked for the list, but we do need to send all of our willpower to Gil today, who's on day 11 of a 30-day juice fast. So not the easiest conversation for you, Gil. We are sorry. And we are all in for you, buddy. You can do this on day 11. We are sending you all good diet juju. Nice. Well, thank you guys for that. And please do take a look at the chat. There's some hilarious ones and additional recommendations on restaurants. And I especially appreciate those of you that totally went off script and just learned about each other. That is the intention. We appreciate that as well. Okay, so let's keep moving. On the agenda, we have on the next section of this agenda an opportunity for you to learn a little bit what implementation looks like for your SERP. So you have just reached a major milestone, and we talked about that. You got your SERP developed, and it's on its way to CARB, or it's at CARB, and now you've got to figure out how you're going to go through implementation. And so we do have some information to share with you about what the next 3 to 5 years looks like for each of you, how this work is going to get done, how it's going to be prioritized, and what you can expect moving forward. So I'm going to ask Jess to jump in and take it away.
Thank you for that. And thank you all. I'm glad that the CSC got to know each other. Now I'm a little bit like, maybe next time we'll mix it up or we'll have our own little breakout rooms, because I feel like I missed that social aspect, but I certainly appreciate the list of restaurants to visit next. So we talked a lot about at the last meeting that this was sort of the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, and that in reality and in a lot of aspects, the hard work is sort of just beginning. We have now the framework in the SERP on how we're going to get emissions reductions in the Stockton AB 617 area. But now we need to kind of go in and get those details figured out with the CSC and work together really the next 5 years on getting those measures fleshed out, getting those measures going, and then working together to get kind of this constant feedback of how are things going, how's implementation of the air monitoring going, and what are we going to do moving forward to make sure people are taking advantage of all of the great opportunities we now have outlined in the SERP. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of a high level sort of what does implementation look like. So right now there are a couple of things that we're going to do next. And the first is really prioritizing measures. We have, a couple dozen, more than a couple dozen measures in the SERP. And we, moving forward, know that we don't have room in every single meeting to talk about every single measure. And so we want to work with you to prioritize the measure, to rank the preferences for which measures perhaps the district can discuss in detail with you regularly that we bring up perhaps to CSC meetings. And really it will help us build a schedule for upcoming CSC meetings for topics moving forward, and perhaps even for scheduling side meetings if needed to set up subcommittees. Really, the main goal moving forward is really to get the CSC's input on strategies. This is really, like I said, where we get into the details. So you will have input on incentives program plans that have to be submitted to CARB on how we spend the funding specifically in some of these measures. And also direction on outreach and implementation. There's certain partners we need to identify. If it's urban greening, I know that we just talked a little bit about some folks that are in the CSC right now that perhaps know a lot about urban greening or vegetative barriers. So we'll work together to identify specifically who we'll work with, who maybe on the technical side we can consult with. I know that's some of the discussion that's been happening. And then how do we reach out to the rest of the community to take advantage? If we have incentives, but no one takes advantage of them, then we're not going to get all of the reductions that we say that we're going to get in the SERP. And then constantly, we are going to continue to update on the CAMP. That's the Community Air Monitoring Program. Now that we have an approved list of where we want to deploy those community air monitors, we need to constantly update you on how that goes. It's kind of a process. You've heard that in the past. We have to cite where we're going to place them. We have to have electrical infrastructure, security infrastructure. So we will constantly update you. And you saw today that is already on the agenda for our regular CSC meetings. We'll also, once those community air monitoring stations are up, we will have real-time access to air monitoring data. And then these meetings, you can expect regular updates on trends and spikes, sources that we might see that are impacting air pollution in the area, as well as actions that we may have taken to alert people perhaps to those spikes. And then finally, you can expect updates on the SERP. You're going to, of course, as a CSC, as I mentioned before, have implementation ideas or ways that you want to help implement the SERP, but you'll also just hear regular updates. We'll have monthly trackers where you will see every single measure, what has been done since you last had a CSC meeting, what incentives have been spent to date, what emissions have been reduced with those incentives. And then one of the main things that we are going to do, that we're actually required to do in the blueprint, is to report annually to CARB. And so you as a CSC will work with us to develop that annual report to CARB with the district and with any of our partners that help us implement those strategies. So this is just a high level of what I just showed, but you can see there are a lot of kind of core pieces to SERP develop or SERP implementation rather, now that we're done with development. And these will continue to evolve. Obviously, the camp updates will continue to mostly talk about deployment of monitors in the beginning, but will evolve to mostly talking about data. Updates on SERP will probably be more related to just getting strategies off the ground or maybe building technical foundations, but then will evolve to just more checking in, updating you on how many people have taken advantage of one incentive or the other. Perhaps it's updates on some of the enforcement strategies that are in the SERP. Those are the sorts of regular things you can expect as we sort of get comfortable and kind of really get implementation off the ground. The first thing though, and this is kind of where we already want feedback, is we talked a lot about prioritization of the SERP measures. And this is something I'm sharing right now and want to get feedback on, and I might stop sharing in a second so I can see faces to get actual reactions, is we created this prioritization exercise. And we would like to, if it's okay with all of you, send this out in a link to, we can even link it in the chat here today and then send it out for those that are not here. But really let you guys take time between now and perhaps the week or two before the next meeting. We'll decide on a final date and let you all know. Take time to go through, and these are actually all of the different SERP measures in the SERP in the different categories. And this tool actually allows you, and hopefully it's easy enough, we actually tried this in another committee yesterday, allows you to drag and drop the different measures, and you can decide on an individual basis the order in which you want perhaps more frequent discussion on these measures or perhaps sooner discussion. In general, we've heard, for example, that vegetative barriers, urban greening are really high level discussions people want to have. And that's where you'll start to drag and drop and sort of order or prioritize perhaps on an individual level what you think of the different SERP measures. And you'll have an opportunity to do that for all of the different measures. So that's kind of what we thought would be a good starting point. And I know today we're going to discuss really what is the foundation of how this CSE works together, which is the charter discussion. So I know that that's an important piece of it. But moving forward, once we kind of have a good foundation for how the CSE operates, another big foundational piece is what are our priorities and how are we going to bring up the different measures and implement the different strategies moving forward. And so we thought starting with the prioritization exercise would be a good way to get that going. So Erica, I will certainly take any questions or comments. I stopped sharing, so maybe I can see some of the chat questions as well. And then definitely would like feedback on folks. Maybe we can, as a quick exercise, just in proof of concept, we can send out the survey and see how it works for folks as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Jess. So if you do have questions for Jessica about anything related to SERP implementation or even that prioritization survey that she showed you and maybe how to drag and drop those priorities, feel free to raise your blue hand on Zoom or type it in the chat. And Jess was able to drop the survey link so you can see it and maybe take a couple seconds to click on that now and see if you see how it works. I'm seeing no questions, so we'll give everybody about 30 to 60 seconds to click on that link that's in the chat right now and see if you figure out how to like move your priorities up and down, if it's intuitive to you, if you kind of like the format of it, or if there's anything that you see just in first glance. You don't have to complete it, but just at first glance, would that work for you? And do you think that that Jess needs to make any adjustments before maybe sending that to the larger committee to complete before the next meeting?
I see Mary Elizabeth's hand.
Hey, Mary Elizabeth.
Hi, I didn't notice a name on that. So are we able to do it more than once or once?
I'm glad you said that. I will amend that. I'm glad you said that. We actually, the same sort of thing happened yesterday. Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Yes, we will add at the bottom, and I'll do that right this moment, adding your name. Please only fill it out once, and we will see based on adding your name. So thank you.
Perfect. along those lines, we do have some alternates in this group. Should alternates fill it out as well, or just the main CSC member?
Just the main CSC member, exactly. And just so you all know, just this is not a finalized document. This is to sort of build a general idea of what the priorities are moving forward. But just in the interest of keeping things, and perhaps this is part of the discussion later on the agenda. But yes, please, if you are the primary person, please communicate with your alternate if you do have an alternate that you will be filling it out. And we'll keep it that way. And again, we do have a list of who the primary and alternates are. So we will be asking for names on the survey, and we'll be able to tell before we kind of finalize everything.
And I see a hand from Douglas. Jess?
Great. Hi, Douglas.
Yes, I have a question. I was looking at the survey. I noticed that it said truck reroute. What organization that does that? Is that Stockton, Port of Stockton? Does that rerouting of the trucking responsibility or not?
I think Ryan's maybe answering that question. Is that your hand, Ryan?
I can handle that. So the truck reroutes, these are typically done by cities and counties. And so depending on the area that we're looking at, it would be the city or the county that would be the ones that would undertake that. And they could also work with potentially other organizations as well.
Because I noted that when we had a presentation, we had a lot of trucks coming to my area around the corner by my house, and they said no truck route. But somehow when the truck hit and turned right, they go all the way, they get off the freeway and go and make turn to the corner house and make a right and keep going straight to Fremont, make a left and go back to the freeway again and go on Fremont Street toward the Port of Stockton. So I don't know if those trucks are being stupid. I don't know that I'm following the route. I don't know. It kind of irritates me where I have to stop them and then they have to go by, they go further more in order to just get off the freeway and make a special short turn to get on the Fremont exit as soon as possible. And that's a lot of pollution, and we get a lot of trees get broken off, branches. Our street and our road and our street we get more pothole, more than more things going on. So that's it. So I just want to know if it's still responsibility for the Port of Stockton that does that in those type of area relationships.
Right. Yeah. So I think to Ryan's point, we would, and what you're bringing up, Douglas, is a perfect example of the type of really detailed, if you guys recall, when we were doing the SERP, we were like, you know what, those are the details. We need to kind of get that outline here. We were on a tight time frame. The information you're providing right now, Douglas, is the type of detailed conversation we need to get into. And this is where once we kind of understand the order and the priority, if truck rerouting, seems to be a high priority, and that means we talk about it sooner than later, we bring in the city and the county, we have all of you together, we talk about those specific details when it comes to that study, and we use the feedback from folks like you and the other residents on putting all of that input into the truck rerouting study. That's where those specifics really come in. So that's a great example of that.
Okay, thank you.
And Jess, I did see there's a hand from Matt, but I saw Jeff had his hand up, so I don't know if he wanted to weigh in on that as well.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Douglas, part of the trucks that you see probably are lost or not doing what they should be. We have truck routes posted all over the port. They could probably be bigger, but that is definitely something we'd be happy to talk about during the port outreach discussion. So we can definitely talk about ways we can improve that. We can talk about the potential to close off West Washington Street at the port. And one of my considerations and what I'm pushing internally is to close the Harbor Road entrance to the port to get all of the trucks. They wouldn't be coming through Boggs Tract. I need to work on a few issues with that. Potential grade separation for rail in a key location, but that is definitely something that we're happy to talk about.
Okay, but I heard that you have a meeting after that. Are you gonna provide that interpreter, or are you gonna be, so it's gonna be at the meeting at the Port of Stockton, or are you gonna be live on televising?
It's going to be similar to this for the time being. I'm hoping that we can get together sometime soon, but the first meeting, the first probably one or two, the very least, are going to be virtual like this, and I'm working on getting an interpreter. Yeah, we'll make it happen. No problem.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, Matt, for your patience.
Yeah. To Ned's point here in the comments as well, there's details about maybe the complexity of some of these challenges, and I think there's complexity about like the partnership arrangements, so like things that require you guys to get external agencies, to get their acts in gear. I think we got to beat a 5-year deadline on this thing. So I think there's a way to kind of think out loud about which one of these we want to talk about first without so much as prioritizing. I mean, I look at this thing and I want to push regulatory to the top for everything.
Right.
But I also know that I think of this more as a checklist, and which one of these needs more time. Like Jeff gave us a great example about, they got to make plans on some of the issues that he brought up for a couple of years. So I don't know if there's a way to get more information, because this I don't want to sound trite, but this feels kind of like what's most popular with me, and I'm always going to put trees to the top. But I don't know that would be an informed choice for me to make. And so maybe there's a way to break these down by complexity, and assuming that complexity is talking about time.
Right. I think there's something too, and maybe take time, and we can have several iterations of this. I think to answer Ned's point in the chat, all of the emissions reductions that are expected and the dollars spent are in that table that we showed several times at the end of the last couple of meetings that's in the SERP. And so that could help maybe drive if you want it driven by emissions reductions potential. So that is a great point. And to Matt's point, one of the things I think that we can always rely on too is that this is sort of a driver in just really the community's concerns and what the community is most interested in. But we will be open and honest if we feel as a district or as partners that implementing one or more of these is going to, like you said, Matt, if it's something that we're looking at right now and we know, for example, that that locomotive switchers take a really long time to order and to manufacture and to get in place, and we want reduction soon, we might just at the very least let you know, hey, it ranked in the middle. We think this is something we want to get going, and touch base with the committee. There's also something I want everyone to know in general is that because something ranks high or low, that doesn't necessarily mean it's first and everything else waits and we go in an incremental order. We will simultaneously continue to work on all of these things. Some great examples are the enforcement measures, the regulatory measures. Matt, to your point, those are very independent of the incentives measures. The thing that's not independent is the committee time. So that's where we really want to know, and a lot of this is phrased, you'll see, and what do you want to bring back for discussions with the committee? And that's where we're almost limited on the more time. But the regulatory teams, the CARB enforcement and district enforcement teams, those are going to go and keep going regardless of all the incentives measures that we're going to dive deep into. So hopefully that helps.
I see hands from Debbie, and I want to acknowledge there's some notes in the chat that I'll direct the Air District to. Hey, Debbie.
I have a question that it's just a general curiosity, I guess, has got me. Are you going to hire people in addition to your staff just for this AB 617 for Stockton, for the air district or CARB?
No, and I'll
That's
maybe
my
let
question.
Ryan, I'll let Ryan or Deldy kind of speak for the high level version of kind of staffing.
So yeah, it's in regards to staffing, I mean, we go through an annual process of evaluating all district programs and the work. And so, you know, having had a couple communities, we budgeted with the concept and idea that Stockton would be similar in the amount and volume of work. And so we have the resources available to fully implement the Stockton SERP. And yeah, so I mean, the staffing and the resources are not going to be the thing that holds it up. It's as Matt and others have commented on, and Ned, the challenge is just wanting to really work with the steering committee members on all the different components and you know, getting guidance and advice on how to implement these as quickly and effectively as possible. That's going to be and using these 2 hours that we have together every month to you know, get through all that work. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. And when Jessica's talking about you know, us kind of working on stuff in the background, it's not so much that we're trying to fully implement it without the conversation with the steering committees. It's more of that legwork of, okay, these are some of the possible agencies that we may need to work with, make sure that they're aware of this. And to a great extent, a lot of this has been happening. But then also through discussions with you, you may identify some other people that we're going to need to work with. And we would definitely use you as a resource in helping do outreach and get them to the table to provide information to the steering committee to help all of us through the implementation phase.
And hi,
Thank
Debbie.
you. And I know that Deldy, I think, oh, there you go. Hi, Deldy.
Hi. Yeah, Debbie, great question. Very much the same as Ryan's response. We are committed to support this committee through implementation. It's a long-term commitment for us, whether it means Scott Wall, our liaison for this community who's here on the call tonight, being your point person for CARB, to our enforcement staff who will be part of the strategies involving enforcement, to the incentives team who will review and approve project plans from the district. We're all here, we're fully staffed, and we're committed.
Excellent. Well, thank you for those. And hopefully, Debbie, that answered your question. If it didn't, feel free to unmute and ask another. I do want to flag some comments in the chat. Certainly, to clarify, I think what originally the plan was with this SERP prioritization exercise is to really think about what do you want to hear about most frequently in terms of updates in your upcoming meetings. And certainly the intention is to accomplish everything in your SERP along the time frame, but we can't always report in meetings about every one of those things. So if you had to kind of distill how you should prioritize, think about what you would like the most frequent updates on in meetings, not necessarily what you think is going to take longer or those kinds of things. So I know that there are, like Jessica mentioned, other opportunities to prioritize some of those things. So for this particular exercise, the intent, I think, was around kind of meeting design and what agendas, like items we needed to think about. But there is some flexibility to talk about some of these other elements, which are so important in another prioritization survey, and maybe with some different thoughts in mind. So it looks like there's numerous conversations and maybe some clarity around what some of the SERP measures might need to, the details for those, right? So we want to make sure that that's incorporated as well. Jess, what additional information do you need from this CSC to move forward with what you need, edits you need, or adjustments for the prioritization exercise?
I think unless unless someone objects, I think if I give 2 weeks, which gives hopefully people time to think about it a little bit, to share with others, we'll send a reminder. Unless there are any objections, I think what we'll do is we'll send it as is. I did add the name in, so thank you, Mary Elizabeth. And we'll give folks 2 weeks to fill it out. So it gives us time to share the results with you all ahead of time, to think about it for the next meeting, and then to use it moving forward to set agendas. And then, you know, based on the results or based on everyone's feelings as they're filling it out, we can change course. This, you know, if as we fill it out and we look at the results, and you all as a group on consensus feel like, you know what, now that I see how that lays out, we're not comfortable with that. We can keep revisiting this every so often, but I have a feeling based on the way that we've all worked together, I think we can all sort of kind of already see what might float to the top and what we really, really want to get done. And we might even hear about some of that later in this meeting. So I appreciate some of that feedback, and we'll definitely follow up with an email.
And I do see Jean and Ned's comments in the chat. Want to make sure those are reflected as well. And I see Ryan's hand.
Yeah, no, I was just going to speak to what we can do is so for example, on the incentive measures and the expected emission reductions, we can resend that out to everybody. That includes the expected emission reductions from implementation of those measures to help everybody in that exercise.
Yes, let's do that.
Perfect. So it sounds like there's an attachment that will go along with the survey to help you kind of package those 2 items. I see Taylor's hand, and then I think we might be able to move on. Hi, Taylor.
Hi. So thank you, Ryan, for saying that. I think that'd be amazing if we could have that info to work off of. Other pieces is just like a kind of structural thing about this survey is I see that like the first question breaks everything out into like categories of strategies. And then we, within those categories, rank the strategies themselves. So the way that we're like structuring report outs and updates is that, are we talking about like having like a block update for all the strategies that are part of like community incentive measures for like on equipment, fireplace, so on and so forth, versus like heavy duty measures, et cetera? Can you just step me through the process of how we're actually going to report out on these things and what it means to prioritize categories versus strategies?
Right. So I think the idea here in general was that it's difficult for one, or at least for myself, to rank. If I had to rank something like 1 through 30, like you start to kind of, it's hard to kind of think in big, large concepts of 1 through 30. So the idea here is that we would sort of understand in general what the categories that were highest, and then through, you know, in those, each of those. The report out though, what we intend on doing, and I can show an example certainly at the next meeting, is we intend on actually providing a report on every single strategy at every single meeting in the form of a tracker like that we print out and actually send to everyone about a week ahead of the meeting when we post the agenda. And so it's not that we won't report out or understand all of these, it's that we'll just sort of use the results of this as a guide when we work to set the agenda to understand what community concerns and interests are. So it's not necessarily that we'll be going down in order. Okay, number 1 is this, number 2 is this for each of those categories. It'll just sort of help guide. And again, this is a sort of our first iteration of this. If this doesn't seem to help or it still seems confusing, we can certainly go through and have another iteration where we just kind of maybe rack and stack everything against each other. But I think for a few of us, since some of these are so different from one another and maybe are on a simultaneous path, it's hard to sit and think of how I rank something 1 through 35 or whatever the number is.
Did that answer your question, Taylor? Yes, no?
Yeah, it did. So I appreciate that. I think the last thing I might say is I just echo the sentiments from Jean and Ned. I think a few others about just we're going to continue needing information to make informed choices about this. So yeah, I know you already said this is an iterative process, but just wanted to flag that as well. Thank you.
Totally, yeah. We'll link to the table that's in the CERT, but we'll cut it out and send it specifically along because yes, certainly making this easier to use is always the key.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Ryan, would you like to close us out on this item?
I'm clicking reaction instead of unmute. I apologize. Yeah, definitely want to use this as like a starting point because there are a lot of issues. So just kind of understanding what the steering committees, what is most important to them. Because we're gonna have to go through the measures like you were talking about urban greening and vegetative barriers. That does, and we're experiencing right now working with Fresno. It's one that honestly it should be something you start off with at the very beginning, because you know, in talking with organizations here, some of these projects take 2.5 years to get up and going and working on it. So I mean, now if the community were to, for example, not prioritize it, which I don't think is going to be the case, but I mean, for example, had they done that, we would definitely come back to the committee and say, hey, while we saw this was, you know, maybe lower on the priority, we want to share with you that a project like this definitely takes a lot of work. And so our recommendation to the committee would then be to raise it up and like do more focus in the beginning to make sure that we do move forward and get those measures implemented. So I mean, we're trying to use this tool to also help inform the discussions that we're going to have with the steering committees on this, to make sure that they understand some of the complexities so if we do come back and say recommend, you know, working on certain measures, it may have to do with some of that as well.
Thank you, Ryan. And I want to acknowledge that Matt's got a request in there about moving the categories or something in a certain category. And then I also see a question about the next steps on this. So it sounds like there are a couple refinements that Jess is going to make. So don't use the link that was given tonight and right now. I think we should, what do you think, Jess? Wait until you send it out electronically so that you can make those adjustments that you wanted, like adding the name and any other refinements that you see recommendations for in the chat.
Actually, I did add the name, so I think that's good to go. And then to answer Matt's question exactly as you phrased in the chat, there is prioritization within the category and prioritization of the categories. So I think that, you know, I'll double check. So maybe let's just not fill it out now, just to triple check, and I'll go through it's hard to look at all of the chat in real time, but just to be totally transparent and make sure that I'm getting everyone's comments in. We'll do one more view. You will see an email from us tomorrow requesting that everyone take a chance to fill this out. We will then remind folks before we finalize. And then what we totally are open to, and do not be shy about it, call us if you need help filling out the survey. We have helped others in other communities do something similar, and we are so happy to do it. So do not let the technology, if it is in the way, hopefully we can help work with you and work around that and really include all of your feedback. So I just want to offer that up.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. That was a really important conversation, and we appreciate thinking through at this stage how you are all going to move forward with this prioritization and or implementation for the next few years. And this is just one way and one step towards, I think, a couple different step process for making sure that this moves forward in the way that you would like. All right, so we're going to continue on with our agenda and move into the item related to reviewing and discussing the charter. And if you can believe it, you know, this committee, if I look at the dates, I think met in February or March of 2020 to develop the committee charter to begin with. And at that time, you guys probably had no idea that, you know, we were going to be sheltered in place. There'd be pandemic restrictions. And so I think it's appropriate right now, and we've reached that milestone of SERP approval by the committee. It's a good time to revisit the charter and make sure it's as clear as it needs to be, and that it reflects the needs of the virtual environment, of a potential hybrid environment. I certainly could see how at this time it makes sense to kind of just do a review and potential you know, refinement and or clarification, right? If you haven't had a chance to look at it, this is a great time to reacquaint yourself with it. So I was not at the meeting in 2020 when this committee worked on the charter, but my colleague Hannah was actually at that meeting. And so I am going to ask her to give a really short refresher for those of you that either don't remember or weren't at the meeting or on the committee at the time, give you a little primer on how the charter was designed. And then we're going to look through it, skim it really quickly, and raise some flags if there are any for you all about what needs clarifying, what might need some tweaks, if anything, and then how we want to move forward with it moving into implementation. Hannah? You are on mute, my dear. Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. Hello again. Yes, I was at the meeting Crystal was facilitating. It feels like 1,000 years ago, but it's only happened back in March 2020, before we knew that COVID is going to be a thing, and we're going to be meeting online every single month and attending more meetings. So at the beginning of this process, this committee had a robust discussion about the charter. And the original charter was developed in collaboration with the community co-leads. And many of you had an opportunity to shape the charter by sharing your verbal and written suggestions and your vision for working together as a group. This group, most of you had a robust discussion during the March 2020 meeting, and then the Air District asked you to submit additional written comments for the charter. And that's how your charter actually came to life. So back at that 2020 meeting, you discussed balanced and transparent participation. That was important for this committee. You discussed accessibility of materials, how, when, who develops materials. You discussed roles and other charter components. And you also talked a little bit about how this committee is being governed and what is the benefit of being governed by a consensus-based process. And one of the benefits of the consensus-based governing was to create a space for insightful discussions, and the most importantly, to hear different voices and to share diverse opinions before moving to vote in the absence of consensus. And online voting was not always a smooth sailing, and ILG, where we're all learning together with you, how can we make this process better? However, this consensus-based process did provide a lot of space for this committee to have this robust dialogues and conversations, considering our 2-hour limitations for each meeting. And this is what we've heard from you. We've heard from you that you would like to revisit parts of your charter, and specifically to clarify the voting process, because it's important. And this is an excellent opportunity to pause and hear from you. What types of other procedural clarifications would you like to see in the charter? What other details in the charter would help this committee to collaborate with more transparency and productivity as you move forward with SERP implementation? So we are open and would love to hear from you, your high-level suggestions or very specific ones.
So the link to, thank you, Hannah. So the link to the charter was included in the agenda. I don't know if you've all had a chance to click on that to refresh yourself with it. I do have access to it today, and I'm happy to share my screen and just do a quick skim if you think that would be helpful. We certainly can't wordsmith today, but we can go in and flag a couple areas that maybe need clarification, or that you would like for the Air District to go back with some revised language on if necessary. So would you like me to share my screen and show the charter as a PDF? Yes, for screen sharing. Give me 1 second. All right, hopefully you can see that. Is it large enough? I don't see any no's, and I'll ask Hannah and Kim to keep me honest because I can't see the chat while I share my screen. So what I'll do is I'll skim through, show you the sections, and then we'll open it up for a discussion around which sections might need clarification or potential refinement. So you start off with the committee objectives, which lines up with the AB 617 blueprint. The roles and responsibilities of the community steering committee members, the next section, and it just highlights some of the major elements that you will discuss during SERP development. Member participation, it identifies steering committee members and alternates and the roles there. The role of the co-leads and the co-hosts on this committee. I think Hannah mentioned that there are a number of co-leads in this committee that help develop this charter to begin with and that are active in engaging on the agendas and other behind-the-scenes activities for the committee. The role of the facilitator, the standard committee meeting procedures, which Hannah was just talking about with regard to consensus, open meetings, the meeting schedule and the agendas, subcommittees, accessibility and accommodation, the website, how materials will be disseminated. Sorry for the slow scroll. And then some attachments. This was the document that you all signed as you became members of the CSC that spoke to what your role and responsibility was, your obligations were, and your agreements around participation in this effort. whether you're a government official, whether you're a resident, or whether you are a CSC member representing an organization, what principles you adhere to, what strategic guidance, vision, and oversight, and other ways that you might provide leadership and accountability and play an active role. Okay, so I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to scroll back to the top, and I'm going to ask Hannah or Kim to check the participant hands, and if anyone has specific comments around sections that we might want to flag, or that you might need clarification from the Air District on, or other members of the committee that might have been part of this process when you all created it in the first iteration.
Not seeing any yet, but I'm sure they will come in.
And if you need me to scroll down to a certain section so you can see it a little more closely, absolutely an option as well. So one question that I will ask as you all are thinking about this, does this charter reflect for you the virtual environment that we've all been in? Is it honoring that spirit of what the intention was, which was in-person meetings, and now this potential hybrid that could be, you know, for the foreseeable future and maybe even longer? Does it acknowledge and respect that new format and that new technology platform, given that it's not what we thought it would be in March of 2020? If it is, fantastic.
And now we have hands from Margot, Catherine, and Jonathan in that order so far.
Great, thank you.
I don't know if I'm ready to speak to your question, Erica.
That's okay.
I'm not sure.
Just a probing one, no worries.
My thing is on the consensus portion, under number 3, deliberation and consensus. And I wonder if we need to consider including, you know, I think we've done the hard portion, maybe not, maybe there's more hard portions ahead of us, but the hard portion of the decision making and the voting might be behind us. I don't know. I think we need to stipulate that if votes are going to be taking place, they need to be taken within the timeline that was allotted. The number of people who would drop off or need to drop off for various reasons seemed a little difficult. And it just, I don't know how that could be managed, but food for thought. You know, if we think we're going to take a vote, bring it up at the beginning of the meeting. We don't have to take the vote then, but plan it for plenty of time before the end of the meeting. I think that's really important.
That is a good comment, and a difficult one. And I'll throw out to you all as a committee that likes to deliberate, to think about how you would want to make sure that you get the conversation that you have, but then also gets the vote on time. So we're going to flag this and make sure that it's identified that there's a time, that there's consideration around that in the agenda, and what kind of specificity is needed so people can plan ahead for those votes. Makes good sense.
Okay, and now we have Catherine.
Thanks. So yeah, I would just underscore what was just said, and I believe I raised at the last meeting. I think we do need to clarify about voting not happening after meetings are over. And then another kind of question that I have raised since the beginning that I'm not sure we've ever resolved within the charter is for members of the steering committee that have a vote and have financial stake in the potential outcome of the vote, like related to incentive measures going to particular industries or particular sources. At the very least, I think that those conflicts should be disclosed, if not have those members actually recuse themselves from those specific votes. So that's something that I would like to see clarification on.
It's a great point. Thanks for that. And then I do want to clarify one comment just to make sure that it's reflected in the notes. You mentioned voting taking place after the meeting is over or the meeting ends. Do you mean the time frame for the meeting itself, or a separate kind of private vote that takes place?
My idea was the time frame of our meeting.
Just the approximate 2 hour window. Okay.
Or if we'd scheduled a 2.5 hour, then that would be included too.
Within the
Yes, and mine
time
as well.
frame of the, perfect. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Because I know we sometimes don't have the specific, sometimes we'll give 20 minutes for an item and it'll go 30 and we'll allow that. So as long as it's within the parameters of the 2 to 2.5 hour meeting or the times that were published on the agenda, that would be your preference.
Well, I just hate to leave people out when they have other obligations at the end, at what we've stipulated as the end. I know it's been hard. It's been really hard. So.
No, it's a great point. I think we've done a decent job of staying through the meeting times, but certainly, it's a really good point, and I think it's important to flag and specify. There was another comment as well.
Yes, we have Jonathan and then Matt. Jonathan, we're having trouble hearing you. You're breaking up.
Okay, can you guys
Looks like
hear me
your
now?
connection's yes.
Okay, great. I probably the part about the facilitator, if the facilitator would be able to provide probably to the very ends of the meetings. I've been trying to do it, but unfortunately I'm not as quick as I can be on providing visual key highlights of what the meeting was. I know Erica, you do a good job with trying to do that after every time we go to the next agenda. If that could be something that could be included for visuals for people who need to see, realistically, what have we talked about so far, that would be helpful. And then I think having, I don't know if it is included on there on the charter, but I know Ryan, when I mentioned about the overall notes of what happened in that meeting, if those notes could be going forward made in Spanish as well, that would be helpful. I do know there are some residents who like to share to their families who speak Spanish, and they want to share with them what they have done during this meeting. I know I don't know if that's made clear that you guys do provide the meeting note or the meeting notes. I know it's on the website, but I don't know if it's on this charter. And I don't know if that's appropriate, that needs to be on here or not.
We'll make a note to flag the request for translation. And again, we're just taking notes on this at the moment. We're going to pass this to the Air District and they're going to report back on what they can and can't do as it relates to this. So we're making notes for all of this, and then they're going to get a report back specifically. So I see under accessibility number 4 and potentially dissemination of materials where that Spanish language notes might make some sense. So we'll flag that. And then in terms of the other portion about the meeting kind of summaries, where that's posted, we can flag that is referenced, or that you're requesting that that's referenced and highlighted in the charter as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
Matt, I think you were next.
Yep, and then Douglas.
Yeah, I think Margot kind of covered this, despite our tendency to deliberate, if there's a vote that needs to happen, it shouldn't be allowed to happen 30 minutes after a meeting. We went through an episode where 13 votes was construed as 50% plus one of a 30-person steering committee. And it turns out it's not going to be the biggest issue. We're still going to be able to co-design our technical advisory group, but we held a vote that was important after a meeting because we didn't get to it. And it's kind of one of the things about facilitating these things is having the discipline to call the ball and finish the meeting. And so just to make sure that doesn't happen. And I think the other thing that Jonathan brought up is this agenda setting power that I see like hints at this in here, but I think we're starting to address it now that we're having these preceding agenda setting meetings. We spent a lot of time in the last several months on a small section of our pollution profile. And frankly, I'm disappointed that I didn't do more to spend more time on the enforcement potential and the rulemaking potential of AB 617. I think it represents a real missed opportunity. And so I think the tracking issues from meeting to meeting, if it isn't on the facilitator to do that the steering committee should be able to bring these up at planning meetings before these meetings. So, help me find in here sort of the holding the hand on the tiller that tells us what our next meeting is going to be about. Make sure that we're not spending our time, 50+% of our time talking about less than 7% of our pollution profile. There was sort of a tendency to steer us towards these convenient incentive buy and bolt strategies. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we talked a lot about things that weren't our major pollution source. And, hopefully as steering committee members, we can direct the meeting that comes up next. And so I think we have that in there, or we've started to do that. We did it for this meeting. I just want to make sure it's enthroned in the charter.
No, that's a great comment, and we'll reflect that, really, and I think even related to the survey that's going to go out, some of the responses from that survey will help move that needle on exactly what you're talking about, Matt, making sure that you're really focusing on what you think is a priority as a committee. Perfect timing. I think that aligns great, and I know Kim is taking some notes on this. We have one more hand, right?
Yep, we have Douglas and Taylor, but Ryan raised his hand, and I think it might be in response to Matt's comments. So I don't know if we want to let him go first. Okay, then Douglas first.
Yes, I would want, because questioning about regarding, I see a lot of people, group that revert, kind of going outside the steering committee, and unfortunately, I think there was a meeting today at 2 o'clock before the meeting of the steering committee, and I wasn't able to go today. I believe it's earlier today, but somehow I didn't quite see what was about, what with regard to what it's about. To be transparent, and as far as what the difference between, if Matt was able to facilitate in that meeting regarding that for today, and what was been said regarding that issue, whatever been topic that was spoken on, and so that's my little concern on that. And as a steering committee member, I think we need to focus on the agenda that are placed on need to be moved in areas that are going through another year of understanding. There's more talk. And yet while we're doing that, we're able to vote. And when time to vote, we don't come up and say, oh, we need to talk about this, things like that. We should, when we're ready to vote, we should be able to spend our time in the meeting, talk about what's going to be voted on, and then we decide to make that vote. And we already heard that clarification. That's just an idea. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. So if I can paraphrase, the first one is to clarify the approach for having separate meetings related to the committee or to the CSC. And then the second one is to really make sure that there's clarity around time to deliberate and then time to vote, and making sure that that's specified as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Douglas. Do we have other hands, Kim?
Yep, Taylor and then Ryan.
Excellent.
Great. So the first thing I want to say is definitely just like echo what other folks have said and elevate one thing that was said in the chat that I don't think that we've talked about yet. But what constitutes a majority belongs on the charter for sure. And also like making sure that a vote is conducted within the agendized timeline absolutely belongs on the charter too. And then I would say I think it was Matt who said the agenda setting meetings. I thought that one, I think it was just like last week, was super helpful. I love being a part of it. I felt very heard, and I think that like it's totally appropriate for like community people on the CSC to like make decisions about like what is talked about. Also about public documents, whether like I know that we have ASL translation here, and that Spanish might not be needed, or like other languages might not be needed in here, but like these are also public facing documents in some cases. And if people who like do not speak English want to access them, I think that should be available as a resource. And And the thing that was in the chat that I would love to hear more about, I think it was Gloria who said it, was about being more intentional about including youth. I would love to hear more youth perspective shared in these meetings. So I'd be curious to hear more from people who've either with Gloria or other people in the chat who like espouse that. And the other thing, the last thing, I know I'm on a whole thing, but the last thing I'll say is there's no mention of the TA group. I know that was like the last thing that we voted on. I would love to see that. And I think that needs to be included in the charter. And we've also talked about other potential subcommittees. We talked about one for the tag, but we also talked about like the possibility of including other subcommittees in the CSC. So wherever that conversation goes, I think that should also be, I see it right now on my screen. But, yeah, but specifically the tag, yeah, as well. So
there is an item on the agenda to talk about the tag. So we're definitely going to talk about that today. And then if at the end of that, you feel that conversation, you feel like there's adjustments that need to be made to this charter, we certainly can and put that in the notes.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for those. And I think, Kim, you got them?
I've got
a good
them.
list.
And we've got Ryan and then Mary Elizabeth.
Awesome. And then the person that wanted to reference the youth, if you wanted to type in any more details about that, or if there's anything you wanted to say, we want to make sure we reflect that in our notes too.
I'll defer to Mary. I'll let, I think I'll maybe just do one kind of response to everything. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. So my question is or comment, both, is in regard to item number 6. So we periodically get sent out information from some organizations in addition to official CARB or San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. Although I did hear that folks would like to have invitations to some of the other meetings. There was an unhappiness that not everyone received a notification when the SERP went in front of the governing board. So, but it just in regard to what is stated here, any material presentation. So we don't necessarily have a co-lead anymore. I mean, that's not something that is regularly happened on. This is item number 6.
I know, I just wanted to flag for you the co-lead section, which is here. So if these two are complementary, I wanted you to see that part.
Okay, so approving what goes out depends on Catholic Charities and Little Manila Rising and Environmental Justice Coalition for Water.
Correct, as the charter is written, yes. Those are the designated co-leads for this subcommittee.
Okay, and so for example, all of those co-leads were notified about this meeting that we just had, or that was discussed, mentioned previously today, that happened today. And they all, like approved, yes, this is good, let's get it out. Or it was one or two of the organizations, or I just wanted to make sure, like, what is the process for deciding what goes out to everyone or not? If you could address the process that you go through.
And I think I'll convert this to Ryan. I think it was spoken about at the last meeting in terms of, and maybe even a little bit what Douglas was talking about, is like, what's the protocol for communicating with the committee as a whole and how to schedule kind of side conversations or relevant conversations for committee business. So maybe Ryan, you might want to take that in the context of your follow-up.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. We've been really liberal, and we appreciate that the steering committee members have shared with us things that they've become aware of that involve AB 617, involve the Stockton community. And we want to be supportive of making the steering committee members aware of these opportunities. So in regards to, did we have a direct conversation with each of the individual groups prior to sending it out? The answer to that is no. We definitely just saw these as opportunities. They were not presented as requirements. But I'd love to hear feedback on that. I think a lot of people have attended the various things and thought appreciated information that was being shared. And so unless we hear differently, we would continue that. But definitely a situation where we would listen to the thoughts of the steering committee members on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. And did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. I want to be mindful of what I've heard already, which is that you guys really do want to end on time, and I do want to be respectful of the other presenters today. So what I'm going to request of you as it relates to the charter in particular, please continue to drop your feedback and comments and requests for clarification or refinement into the chat. We will take all of those notes and we will come back to you, and the Air District will come back to you with some refinements for you all. And I think, is there anybody else that has a hand up right now related to the charter?
Jonathan's hand was up.
Jonathan, is it still up? Is it something you can put in the chat? I saw some notes about the youth committee, which is an awesome idea. And then you had a question about another round of residents to join the CSC and whether that application period might be open again and if it would reopen. I do see that.
I think I was just going to provide more concept with the idea of the co-leads. The co-leads themselves were meant to be, because as of right now, if we took out the co-leads, the power would be from the Air District, and the Air District would have to, we would work with the co-host. Unfortunately for us, we want to make sure we're working in tandem, because we actually provide quick information to Valley Air District when something happens. Like, for example, the meetings with city council, the meetings with county, I was able to do quickly. The meeting, we were able to get the meetings with Caltrans. If it wasn't for us being co-leads, we wouldn't have been able to get those meetings. Like, we wouldn't have been able to quickly get those, out of the way. And so for us, it's having to make sure that we work in tandem with what Valley Air District does, so that we can let you guys know. Or like if there's some more information that we finally realize that the Valley Air District may need questions on when it comes to the agenda developing, or their questions that they have to go through us, we would do that. We would work in tandem on that. But that language needs to be in there, just so I mean there could be some changes here and there, but that was the reason. That makes sense, Mary.
Thank you for that context. And I also want to thank everyone that's dropped content into the chat. Those will be reflected as well in the notes that are sent. And if you have any additional thoughts around the charter, I do encourage you to drop that into the chat before the end of this meeting, and we'll make sure to include it. Wonderful discussion. Thank you all so much for that candor. And let's continue with our meeting. And we have two more updates. The standing updates are next. And we have a few standing updates. The first one is going to be air monitoring from Chai and Gil. And then we're going to turn it over to our friends at CARB and see if they have any updates. And then we'll do wrap up as quickly as humanly possible to get you out by 7. So Chai and Gil, do you want to talk to us about community air monitoring?
Sure. Thank you, Erica, and good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. So we're working very closely with Stockton Unified, and they've been extremely supportive, and we really appreciate that. It's just demonstrated the fact that even Gil Rosas is here with us today as well. So we've been working together. We've gone and visited some of the schools, identified potential locations, potential electrical needs, and also have drafted up a lease agreement that we're working through to eventually take to the board on that. So looking forward to getting some of these units out there fairly soon. And in the meantime, we were able to take, and also through the assistance of Stockton Unified, we're able to get the van out to Washington Elementary and have it run for the weekend. And some of the preliminary data we're seeing is fairly consistent as we compare that with the Hazleton, the CARB Hazleton air monitoring site. And so really nothing too alarming at that point, but once we get a little bit more data, we'll share it with the committee. And that pretty much is my update on it. Gil, did you want to add anything else onto it?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Chai.
I just wanted to point out that we've seen a bunch of the sites, and we do plan on working on getting more sites looked at, and the lease agreement's gone through. Obviously, on our end, we've had the start of school started last Thursday, so we're back now, and the superintendent is totally swamped with a lot of stuff. But I've had a meeting with him this week, and I actually have 2 more scheduled for next week. So I will definitely be able to bring all these things to a forefront that he's been asking about. So I just thank you guys for your patience. It takes a while to get a lot of stuff done. The other thing you needed to do was within the chain of command, let everybody else know, because there's a lot of moving parts in a lot of schools, that I would be representing him and the district on all these things. So that should speed up the timeframes on everything. So just thank you for your patience. The other thing I want to let you know is we have our other buses plugged in. There's 6 on site, and we've got 5 more coming from the next grant that we're doing and working on. We're also applying for a Department of Transportation grant, which is $5 million. And that's to help with infrastructure and get more buses out there. So we are working diligently to work on the emissions efforts. And so, you know, I welcome any questions you guys have about that. I just want to let you know that we're not sitting around. We're trying to get stuff done as fast as we can. And this project here in Stockton in itself is definitely getting national attention. Becky Pringle, the president of the NEA, National Education Association, she actually mentioned our project and some of the stuff we did to the Biden cabinet. So I just want to let you know that they're aware that Stockton's on the map. It's not New York, it's not LA, and we're representing well, and things are getting done. I've spoken now, I think, at about 5 webinars, and I'm going to be speaking at a podcast and 6 more webinars by July. And so as soon as we can do a ribbon cutting, we'll do that. I sent Ryan some pictures of the yard. Our students are working on the next Energy Patrol video. So we'd love if you guys do a youth summit to include, yeah, those are the chargers there. So there's some empty stalls. So we'd love to work with you guys on how soon we can do POs, because the chargers are there. We've got a few buses, but a lot of empty stalls. And so, yeah, we're really excited about the fact that the kids came out, got on the buses, and are doing tours. We're getting them all the DMV stuff figured out. And so we're just super excited about this project and helping you guys with it. So I'm promising faster turnaround times on all the things we're working on together. Thank you.
That is awesome. Thanks for that update, and thanks for sharing the photos. I see Ryan's hand, and then if you have any questions for the 2 on air monitoring and the great project, please let us know. And then Gil, definitely take a look in the chat. You got some love being shown to you in the chat. Ryan?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the process stuff and kind of hear from the steering committee on how they want to proceed with this. So in the community emission reduction program, the committee allocated $4 million to electric transition school buses in Stockton to electric. That could be moved forward with now. I mean, we could have Gil and Stockton Unified fill out applications, turn those in, and we could begin the process of funding that. But you know, definitely wanted to, before doing things like that, you know, we want to talk about it with the steering committee and get their input and feedback. Now, once again, it is in the SERP, and you have Gil, who's super motivated and wants to get this done. And I saw earlier Matt had said, how do we elevate this? So yeah, this is something that we could literally get going tomorrow if that was the desire of the steering committee. And I don't know, this is just one of the things that has excited us working with Stockton and the partners, is just the enthusiasm and the excitement for moving forward, and the ability to move forward with this stuff and not delay. So, but before doing it, wanted to talk to all of you.
Does anyone, in the spirit of time and just looking at how much support there appears to be, is anyone concerned about moving this forward, as Ryan mentioned? Anybody want to identify or articulate any challenges you see with moving that forward? If so, please raise your hand or write in the chat. Mary Elizabeth.
Hi, I just want to make sure that some of the private schools and the religious schools that are in the AB 617 area are able also to apply should they desire to do so. So there's 2 Catholic schools. I don't know, like what their situation is, if they ever use a bus or have a bus. I don't know what that is, but I don't believe that the school bus cert measure was restricted to Stockton Unified.
Mary Elizabeth, I'd like to say one thing is that they could probably use them if they had chargers installed and had an infrastructure. We put in $2 million of infrastructure. So they just to consider that they have to have chargers in order to use them.
There are some challenges with providing funding to private schools as well. And Aaron could probably, I see Aaron Tarango on there. It has to do with the California Constitution. And there's legal requirements that we can't provide certain funding types. But I'll let Aaron go into more detail on that.
No, that's pretty much true. We looked at that back in 2009. So something brought up, and public dollars cannot be used to fund private religious schools or secular schools. It doesn't allow for that, period, in the California Constitution. So we can't legally fund private schools that are religious based at this point in time.
But I mean, there may be other opportunities outside of something like this through maybe a supplemental environmental project or something like that, where they don't have the same type of requirements. So we'll definitely look into other opportunities that may be available.
Wonderful. So Ryan, there are some questions and comments in the chat related to this, but what I'm hearing you say is you guys will follow up as an air district and see if there are opportunities and bring that back to a future meeting or discussion. I see 2 hands. And I want to be mindful of time that you guys said you wanted to end it on time. Even though we're not voting today, I do want to honor that. So we'll take Regina and then Noemi, and then we'll move to the CARB update.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to just make a couple of, I have a question for Gil. How many buses do they have right now for Stockton Unified School District? How many electric buses?
We have 6 right now, and we have 24 chargers.
6 and 24 chargers. How many schools would you serve? Do you serve in the South Stockton area in the AB 617 community?
I'd have to double check on the count, but I think we have 55 schools total, and I'm not sure how many are above the line. But I do have a chart on my office, so I could count them and send that back to you guys and put it.
That would be great for me. For me, my concern is that if Stockton has 6 buses already, then they can use those 6 buses to service the schools in South Stockton. And those funds that you're going to be getting, then you can use those funds for more electric buses for the rest of Stockton school districts. I only want to serve, and I'm only concerned about the South Stockton area within the AB 617 confines. And that's pretty much all I had to say about that.
Thank you, Regina. And if you can see him, Gil is nodding. Thanks for that comment. Noemi, close us out on this. Thank you.
Hi, yes, no, I want to thank those who brought up private schools. Just so you all know, I know there's a misconception about private schools and that we only serve rich families, and that is far from true. I have homeless kids at my school. They are on scholarship for sure. We are still the same demographic as the rest of the Stockton community, but they choose a faith-based learning experience. But with all that said, yes, thank you for advocating for, using the electric buses from Stockton Unified. I know it's complicated. I have tried to just be creative about how we can use resources without violating the Constitution, of course, and I understand why it's there. But I don't have, as a Catholic school principal, an avenue to charter like an electric city bus. That doesn't exist. I don't have resources at San Joaquin County Office of Education, which serves all schools, private, public, charter, to reserve a bus through them either. So if, for example, the money that we will spend on electrifying buses was shifted over to like the county office of education, then all schools and all residents could use them rather than just the public school students or just a small group of students. With all that said, I want to advocate for my students for sure, and other Catholic school students and private school students, but I still love public schools. So thank you for all the work everybody does. Thank you.
Thanks for that comment, Noemi. And I think the outcome on this is that Ryan and the Air District team are going to see what options exist to support additional schools if possible, and they're going to bring that back to you because it's clearly of interest to this group. So thank you for that great dialogue. Okay, CARB, Scott Wall, I think you have a quick CARB update. Can you unmute and give us any updates from CARB?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. This is just really more of a save the date. I'm happy to let you know that we actually have what seems to be a pretty solid hearing date for the California Air Resources Board for the Stockton SERP. At this point, that hearing date is scheduled for Thursday, July 29th. The hearing would start at 4 p.m. and this will be a standalone meeting. So the only item actually being heard at this hearing will be the Stockton SERP. It's outside of our regular meeting schedule, but we thought it was important to give the community and our board kind of the separate airtime and space to have a full discussion without any other agenda topics kind of crowding in. So certainly let me know if you have any questions, but please do save the date again for Thursday, July 29th at 4 p.m. For the hearing of your SERP with our board.
Excellent. And I'm going to make an assumption that there is going to be a notice sent from the Air District and or CARB specifically with that detail. So you guys save the date now and look for more intel later. Okay. And seeing no hands, we are going to move into wrap up. We have 3 minutes and I think we can do it. And we do have public comment that we need to do as well. So thank you all so much for the productivity and discussion today. First things first, we didn't have a community co-host today. We would love to have a community co-host moving forward. Please feel free to volunteer, put your name in the chat or email the Air District, and you can help continue to kind of refine how these meetings go to make sure that you are playing the role that you want to play. And then another item that we brought up briefly is this technical advisory committee. So you talked about that at a couple different meetings. In the agenda today, we flagged that there is an opportunity to get some feedback from this committee about what that subcommittee might look like. What kinds of topics do you want to discuss? What kind of expertise do you want? You, I think, have an opportunity to help define this group for the Air District as it's being created. And so anyone interested in weighing in on that, please email the Air District and look for an email from the Air District regarding that opportunity. There's going to be a special optional planning meeting to just to discuss the technical advisory group and as a subcommittee of the CSC. Okay, I see no hands. And so I'm going to move us into public comments, and I'm also going to flag for you in advance, if you do have any parting comments, raise your hand now. But I'd like to look at the social media pages and ask the Air District if they've gotten any emails or other public comments from those on the Zoom or in any other forum. Does anyone need or want to make a comment or have a question related to this agenda today?
Erica, this is Catherine. I just wanted to see if we could clarify whether the Air District is now moving forward with spending the $4 million on the electric school buses. I was not clear on how we left that item.
Yes, we saw no complaints, it sounds like, on that, with the exception of the question on the schools, specifically the private schools. Ryan, do you feel like you have enough, or what detail do you need? Thank you for that, Catherine. That is a perfect point of order.
Yeah, I don't think we have clarity on moving forward. I think what we could do is probably agendize it. I think there are other things like number of school buses and a lot of other discussion that we can still have on the topic. I don't know. I mean, that's, and to Matt's question, yes, we have the authority. Once our board has approved the SERP, we can move forward with spending incentive dollars on the incentive measures that are included, that we have approval from CARB, either through existing project incentive project plans or in the community air protection incentive guidelines.
Okay, so it sounds like not enough, there's some stickiness associated with bringing in the additional partners. They're going to do a little bit of research, bring it back. There is the opportunity to discuss this before CARB approval on the SERP, so it could bring as soon as potentially the next meeting if that were something that the Air District could pull together. So it sounds like we're not moving forward, but that we're going to continue doing research to make sure that your requests and questions are answered related to those additional opportunities for non-public schools. I see Jeff's hand, and let me, before Jeff, I'm go to you, I'd like to make sure, public comment, do we have any from our Facebook pages, our social media pages, or anyone on the line from the public? If so, please raise your hand now, and I'll go to Jeff.
Okay, thank you. I put it in the chat, but I did just want to say that the first Port Outreach Committee meeting is next Wednesday at 3:30. So we're excited to kind of kick that off and work with you guys further to develop plans and collaborate on ways we can reduce port emissions. So just wanted to plug that real quick.
Excellent. And if you could drop that in again, we'll make sure that it's flagged.
And nothing to bring over. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Heather. And then there's a note in here from Kyle. To be super clear, if there were some ways our guidelines fall short or maybe lack flexibility, it's key for what's needed to go through community identified projects and process. So great comment from CARB there. Please do take a couple seconds to review the chat. There was a lot of flurry of activity in that last minute or so. And we want to make sure that we have all of the intel and insight from all of you before we close. We're 2 minutes over. We've done public comment. We've covered all of our agenda items. Any parting thoughts for this group? And I see Jonathan's question about co-hosts. We did ask for volunteers for co-hosts. I don't see any names in the chat at the moment, but you have the opportunity to drop your name in now, or you can email the Air District separately and then play a role in really refining the meeting and refining the approach. Any last thoughts or comments before we adjourn this meeting from anyone, either co-leads or hosts or anyone else? We welcome this last couple seconds for that. Without seeing any hands, I would love, oh, Ed's willing to co-host. Thank you, Ed. We will put you on that list. And without further ado, happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. I think everyone is now going to try out a restaurant that we all talked about. And good luck to Gil with the liquid cleanse. I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm starting mine next week. Not this week, next week. Have a good evening, everyone. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everybody. For the great conversation.
Good night.
Definitely check out some of those local restaurants. I can't wait to try some of those.
This is Red Lobster is good.
Those Red Lobster biscuits are famous, like famous. People are obsessed with Red Lobster biscuits.
As soon as I found out that you could get them at Costco, I never needed to go to Red Lobster again.
What did you say, Gene?
I said, so are their waistlines. Those things are killer.